All right, welcome to Bet the Edge. I'm Jay Croucher here with the whale capper, Drew Dinsick. Today we're going to talk NFL, break down a few games on the Saturday slate, and then we'll also talk some NBA. Coming to you from a hotel room in Chicago. Drew, I've been to Chicago a few times now through NBC. I don't think I've seen the sun yet. I think I'm 0 for 7. So perhaps a little sunnier in California for you, but sun won't matter in Colts-Vikings because it's in a dome. Let's start with that game. The Vikings are 4-point favorites. The total is 48.5. Anything you're doing with this one?
Yeah, I'm leaning Vikings here. Not the strongest play on the card for me this week for sure, but I make this one 6, and it's not because I am higher than market on Vikings. I am lower than market on Colts. This continues to be a theme of really the entire Jeff Saturday era for me. I get it; they've gotten healthier. I get it; they have had some success, and some things are working for this Colts team, but. I just have these two teams in different classes. Vikings can get to 30 points in this game. Colts, they're going to struggle to keep Matt Ryan upright. I really am just not buying anything that the Colts are trying to do conceptually, offensively, and even sort of the hidden edges in the game. I don't think break in favor of the Colts here. So I would look for Vikings to have a decent bounce back after that loss against the Lions. And yes, I know the Vikings are an average or maybe a little better than an average team in the NFL right now. But this is a huge game for them because a win here effectively puts the division away. So I would expect that you get an honest effort here out of the Vikings, and I think covering the 4 points, 4.5 right now as we're looking at the screen, I think makes the most sense in this game. Total maybe a little low. If there's a weakness in the Vikings, it's certainly the defensive side of the football. Although they do have a knack for ball hawking, this is still a team that I think can be beaten. So Indianapolis finding some success if they can get into the red zone would be my expectation. So touchdowns instead of field goals would lean me to an over bet. But I think a little bit bigger edge for me laying the points with the Vikings.
Yep, I like the Vikings as well. I think I'm buying the Vikings now. I think they've become underrated. I think that what they've shown so far isn't very impressive, but I do think there is still scope for this team to get better with, adding TJ Hawkinson each week. He gets more integrated. I think Kirk Cousins as well has been playing better since TJ Hawkinson got involved. So yeah, based on what the Vikings have done so far, they're not a very impressive team. They're like a 500 level team that has just gone 9-1 in one-score games. But I would project that they would get better the rest of the season with Hawkinson, with Cousins playing better. They moved the ball at will against Detroit. They just weren't able to finish things off. That passing game looked better. The defense is still, it's just not very good. The pass defense just isn't going to be fixed. They just don't have any answers there. But this Colts team just has no ceiling on offense. There's just nothing there. The defense is competent enough, but the ceiling is not too good. There's no real way to attack the Vikings because in futures markets, because with the NFC title, that they might be underdogs in every game that they play in the playoffs or close. I guess they'll probably be favored in a 3. They're probably going to be the 3 seed in a 3v6 matchup against whoever gets there. But after that, they will be. They'll be. What would they be in Philadelphia?
Plus 8. Yeah, 8. Yeah, for sure.
So, yeah. Not too pretty. All right, let's go to Ravens.
Actually, I want to add one more thing before we move on. We've been selling Vikings, and it's been correlated with one important thing. Christian Darrisaw and Bradbury have been unavailable. They're both expected back against the Colts. So an intact offensive line makes that offense that much more dangerous. If that news changes, I'm going to cool my opinion of this quite significantly, but expecting a healthy offensive line for the Vikings, which is going to matter.
Yeah, and that was key against Detroit because Detroit have no pass rush whatsoever, but the Vikings turned James Houston the 4th and the great Aiden Hutchinson, who until that game could not rush the passer at all, really. So I do think, to your point, Darrisaw and Bradbury is really significant. That Vikings pass game should be a top 6, top 7 pass game in the league with the amount of weapons that they have and the offensive line. All right, let's talk Ravens-Browns. The line here is Cleveland -2.5. The total is 38.5. Now, this is probably the game where most people have asked me, like, why are the Browns only favored by 2.5 points when it seems like Lamar will be out most likely. Tyler Huntley is probably going to play, but not guaranteed, in which case it would be Anthony Brown. So why is the line only 2.5? And my main answer is that the Ravens, if it's Huntley, they might have an advantage at quarterback over the Deshaun Watson, who at least Deshaun, like, he looked like an NFL caliber quarterback last week against the Bengals, whereas he didn't at all against Houston. Some of those just bizarre short arm passes, but he still wasn't good against the Bengals. And I think the strange thing with Cleveland is they can't run the ball anymore. Since they lost their center and coming out of the bye, like, they just haven't been able to kill teams on the ground as they were earlier in the season. So I think you add all of this up to a defense as well that's just been bad all year. And the Ravens defense is a top 10 unit, and Huntley is fine enough that, yeah, I think this line makes sense. But what do you make of it?
Yeah, I think the bet is Browns minus 2.5. I don't feel comfortable saying that for all the reasons you just laid out. Deshaun Watson might be a bottom 5 quarterback in the NFL right now. And some of that may be rust. Some of it may be scheme. Some of it may just, he was out of the NFL for a long time. And that has an impact. And I think the most curious thing, because that Cleveland-Cincy game, like, you look at this final score and you think that was a runaway for the Bengals, right? But there was a lot of moments in that game where if they make, if you're the Browns offense and you make the right play, or just have a mediocre successful play in some of those high leverage moments, I think they are in that game with the chance to steal it. So I don't really know that we have a good way to rate what Cleveland is right now. And the curious thing about what Cleveland was even doing in that game was very strange. You mentioned they haven't been able to really put up much of a rushing attack. A ton of it was the personnel and the scheme that they were employing. And I think that they internally may be kind of throwing up the white flag on the season and trying some things that are different to see if they can figure out, what is their best form going forward for 2023. That's the only thing I can conclude, because what they were doing that was working so well, we just haven't even seen it. They didn't even try it against the lowly Texans, who can't defend the run. And so it's very strange what's going on there conceptually. But I think now, third game back for Watson, you're going to get a little bit more comfort with him, and just in terms of what they're trying to do. And you're going up against a Baltimore team that played a super physical game against the Pittsburgh Steelers last time out, and maybe trotting out a quarterback who's well below replacement level. So if Huntley ends up going, 2.5 is probably fair, and I may be holding a bad ticket. But if this is the Anthony Brown show, then I think this crosses 3. Cleveland goes into this one favored by 3.5, 4 points. So I think if you're going to make if you're looking to try to make a plus EV bet, capture some market volatility on this one, your only look is the Browns.
Yeah, I think at the current price, that makes sense, where if it is Anthony Brown, this line isn't going to be 2.5 or close. It will definitely go through 3. And the other thing as well, and 2 things. So one, I think it's more likely that Anthony Brown plays than Lamar Jackson plays. So you're getting that
I think so too.
Secondly, like, there's no real downside to Deshaun at this point. Like, he's been terrible. I think the market is now treating him as being probably worse than Jacoby Brissett this week. And there's still a ton of upside with Deshaun. Like, one week he might just show up and be the guy he was 2 years ago. So you're getting that upside as well. So I agree, at 2.5, you hold your nose and you take Cleveland. All right. Before we get to Dolphins-Bills, a reminder to download the RotoWorld app to receive breaking player news all season long. Stay ahead of the competition by favoriting players on your roster. Get the latest injury updates, player news, and much more delivered right to your phone. It's available in the App Store today. All right, let's talk about Dolphins-Bills. Bills minus 7.5. The total is 42. Didn't think this was going to be 7.5 a couple of weeks ago, but can't really argue with it too much, given how atrocious the Dolphins looked on Sunday Night Football. I still think this line is a little bit too big because of the weather, but where are you leaning with this?
I'm glad you brought up that as the sort of tee-up question, because we have seen this total get beaten to smithereens. It opened 47, and in a matter of a couple of hours, got bet down to 42. Now, that doesn't take a lot of money when you are talking about openers, even at some of the market making books, but it's not something you can ignore. And there are very, very smart people who shape these totals based on weather early in the week, and they are very rarely wrong. The last time we saw this was actually a Buffalo Bills game against the Detroit Lions that ultimately ended up being so significantly impacted by snow that they moved it to Detroit. And it was Browns game, right? Got moved to Detroit. And I think you're realistically expecting similar conditions to what we saw in the first half of the game against the Jets, where it's going to be cold and rainy, so slippery conditions with the ball, a little bit of wind to impact the ability to kind of complete downfield throws. And to me, at least, if you look at these two quarterbacks and you say which of these quarterbacks is more likely to succeed in those conditions, it's clearly Josh Allen. Tua in a dome or in pristine Miami sunshine still does not have an especially impressive arm. His mechanics have kind of have devolved over the last handful of weeks as he has been more inclined to look to scramble as opposed to stay in the pocket and deliver the throw. So a lot of questions about Miami's offense being able to bounce in this spot, in these conditions against this defense. Buffalo schemes a defense that has quite a lot of, just in general, they kind of invented the, hey, we're going to pressure your wide receivers. We're going to, put them into, we're going to contact them inside 5 yards or not let them get off the line of scrimmage cleanly. That was the strategy they employed first time these two teams played. It worked pretty effectively. Like, that game was kind of tilted and strange in the fact that Buffalo, failed in the red zone so many opportunities in that game and had just couldn't catch the bounce that they needed, particularly at the end of the game. I think Buffalo gets this one pretty comfortably. I think 7.5 is fair to lay. I don't think a 7 is going to show. And that's, I was hoping it would. I've been sitting on my hands, haven't bet this game, hoping we would see a 7. It is funny though, to see a total plummet by 5 points and no action at all on the side.
Yeah, that's strange to me. I would still just hold my breath and take Miami plus 7.5. Don't feel good about it. It does feel like it might be Tua's reckoning for a second week in a row. I thought that the Dolphins game against the Chargers was probably, in a way, the least impressive game that any team has played this year, because that was such a violent performance relative to expectations, where it wasn't just that they lost. It was the fact that they needed Tyreek Hill to score the most miraculous touchdown of the season, fumble return, to even get close against the Chargers defense that isn't that good to start with, or at least isn't elite, and was still missing Derwin James and Sebastian Joseph Day and Bryce Callahan and all these guys. So I don't know what the hell that game was. I'm inclined to not throw it out, but certainly at least discount it a little bit, just because it was so departed from everything that we've seen from the Dolphins offense, which to that point had been elite. And I don't know. I just can't give up on the Dolphins entirely. I think Tyreek Hill is going to play just because of the stature of the game, the fact that he was able to play through the ankle on Sunday night. Love a short week on the road in Buffalo, but I would still be taking the points. And it's mainly because the Buffalo offense it hasn't looked at the same level in a while now. I don't think the offensive line is very good. The Dolphins' defensive line has become excellent. So I think this is just a little bit closer. I think that the line should be 7. So it's not like I have a huge edge on it or anything. But yeah, I would take the Dolphins in the conditions and feel terrible about it. Like, where are you at on the Dolphins for the rest of the season?
I am on. They may fall out of the playoff mix. Kind of concerned for them. They have what? So I don't have a good answer here, other than just, as the degree to which Tua's performance was a reflection of having 2 elite wide receivers, and now both guys, particularly Waddle, are hurt. I feel like is sort of the key issue here, and that they don't really have a plan B. The running game has never really materialized. They went out and gave up future assets to bring in Jeff Wilson Jr. as the guy. He gets hurt immediately. Like that, there's one dimension to this offense, and it is getting chunk plays to Waddle and Tyreek Hill. And when you go through the stretch of your schedule where you're playing miserable defenses, that works wonderfully. You're scoring 30 points a game without trying. And then the minute you go up against, legit competition, other teams that are fighting for playoff spots, it all of a sudden doesn't look as good. And you were exactly right that was a very weird performance in LA just because of the talent that was available on the other side of the football. But you had a decent defensive scheme in what Staley was trying to do that countered the brilliant scheme that McDaniel came into that game with, and that was basically the entire handicap there. And I think similarly, Les Frazier and what he did last time out versus the Dolphins will work even more effectively this time, considering the conditions, considering the health of the wide receivers, and the idea that Tua is going to have be throwing up shot puts, ball slipping out of his hand, getting picked off by Jordan Poyer, taking it to the house. Like that's the sort of spirit in the feel that I'm expecting of this game. I'm even if Tua can even do a Mike White impression, I'll be impressed. Mike White was able to score 12 points on this team. So it's, I think realistically, Bills defense is the unit that to me is the standout performers in this particular contest. And I've heard some people theorize a little bit that the Dolphins, like, you don't necessarily want to be counting on the bells and whistles and the tricks and the stuff that's not repeatable, because once that stuff gets figured out, if you don't have sort of a meat and bones, this is what we do and this is what we do well, then you don't have anything. And that's what it has looked like now 2 weeks in a row for this Dolphins offense.
Yeah, no, look, there's definitely a line of thought where you can just say that, this Dolphins offense is kind of fake because it's inflated by destroying the Texans, the Browns, the Bears, the Lions in succession. Those are all bad defenses. It was basically one quarter where just everything went to hell against the Ravens, where they just lit them up, and it was Tyreek and Waddle and a few isolated plays. At the same time, like, Tua's second in the league in EPA per play among quarterbacks. So I can't write off the Dolphins entirely. My concern would be around health for Waddle and Hill, and if those guys just aren't close, then that would be, a tangible reason for why they're not playing as well. But not giving up on the Dolphins entirely yet. Looks like we've got a question from a viewer. Have a 17-1 ticket on Buffalo first and the Jets second for the AFC East. Any chance it cashes? Yeah, huge chance. I think the Bills are going to win the division. They're minus 1,200 range now, minus 1,500 range. So you need the Jets to come second, and it's probably going to come down to that Week 18 game in Miami, Jets-Dolphins.
I agree.
The key there is that the Jets, they can lock up the tiebreak against the Dolphins if they win that game. So you might be able to, if you're on for a big enough amount where hedging makes sense, and I generally try to dissuade people from hedging by just betting a game line. But if it is a big enough amount and you don't want it and you don't want the sweat, then you'll probably be able to get out of that. Well, good chance you're able to get out of it in Week 18.
Jets need to win this week, though. And I think they can.
Yeah, they can. Well, they got to go 3-1. So if they lose this week, then they got to beat Jacksonville, Seattle, Miami, which is doable, but obviously you'd rather bank the win against the Lions. Yeah. All right. Before we get into the NBA, just a reminder, if you don't have the NBC Sports Predictor app, go download it now. The contests are free and easy to play, and you have a shot to win thousands this weekend by predicting what will happen during the college football bowl season and in the NFL, including $100,000 up for grabs by guessing the outcome between the Giants and Los Commanders in our Sunday Night 7 contest. Ooh. All right, let's talk about the association. What are your best bets tonight, Drew?
Well, I'm coming for some revenge, man. I was a couple Anthony Davis missed free throws away from having a winning night in the NBA last night, so I'm a little salty. And there are 3 edges that stand out on the board for me today. I have, and I'll just mention, I played the Nuggets. I think they win comfortably against a Wizards team at altitude. But my favorite 2 looks are the Toronto Raptors laying 4.5 against the Sacramento Kings. I make that game 7. I don't think the Kings are in a good spot at all. I bet against the Kings last night, obviously, versus the 76ers. Kings right now are limping into this game. A number of the things that were working well for them when they were winning just have not been, they have not been able to replicate it as they go through this difficult portion of their schedule where they are dealing with significant fatigue. This is the most tired the Kings will trot themselves out, since they've started this season. And I think against the Toronto team that is rested and home, they are in for a rough outing. I think, this is just a disaster of a spot for Sacramento. And while I do support what they are building there, and I do think this is a bet on team, and future opportunities, tonight is not the night for the Kings. The other side I really like, I played the money line in the Orlando Magic against the Atlanta Hawks. Atlanta Hawks also in a very bad spot schedule-wise. And I believe in the Magic. I believe in the Magic to be the, if not the best, at least compete for the top spot in the Southeast. This is a young core that is getting better. They are put together now a 3-game win streak. I think they make it 4 against a Hawks team that is just, I don't know what they are. I don't know what they do well. I don't know that they even like playing with each other. And all of the opposite is true for the Orlando Magic. They are figuring out what they do well, and they are figuring out how to win games, how to put teams away at the end of games. The overtime win, last week was kind of the one that I needed to see to really believe that the Magic are capable of clawing back into this division. Right now, they are 6 games behind Atlanta. A win tonight closes the gap right away. And I think Orlando, anywhere in the 100-1, 200-1 range you can find out there to win the Southeast Division is worth a shot, because I got to tell you, man, the Hawks, the Heat, the Wizards, the Hornets, those are all bad teams. They all have critical flaws. Now, Hawks could get right. They could fire their coach and get the right coach who can get those guys to play well together, but they're not built well. Like, just the pieces don't fit together well. And then similarly, the Heat, they look old, they look tired, and they're one critical injury away from just kind of falling out of the mix entirely for a playoff spot. So the Magic, I think, are worth a shot to win the Southeast. Am I caught up? Am I dreaming? Am I out of my mind here, believing in the Magic?
No, I don't think so. I've got a lot of Magic to make the play in at 20-1, that type of range. I think that's still the market price. I think that's still a bet. The good thing with the Magic is that, unlike a team like, say, Utah or teams of that ilk, like, the Magic can't really tank that much because they don't have any veterans to trade away,
right?
Outside of like Terrence Ross, who doesn't really matter. And I think the key thing with the Magic is that Franz Wagner is like a legit kind of all-star adjacent player. I think he's going to have a better career than Scotty Barnes, who he went a few picks after in the draft. I would be taking Franz over Scotty just because of how seamlessly he fits into any team. He's playing well on defense. Seems like he's kind of self-creating more as well. When you have Franz and that upside, Banchero, Bol is like a legitimate player now. He's a legitimate piece. And then the issue with the Magic has always been the guards play, and the fact that it's like there's a lot of Caleb Houston going around, which you don't want. But Fultz is a legitimate player. Like, Fultz is fine. They need Suggs back and Suggs to give them a bit more upside. He's not the most inspiring player, but yeah, I mean, in that division, I mean, it's bleak. Like, this Atlanta team is horrible to watch. DeJounte's out at the moment. There's some chance that, I mean, trade Trae Young. Like, that's a chance. They could just, they probably won't, but
if I was the Hawks, I'd think about it.
Yeah. There's weird stuff swirling around that team, and the Heat. I mean, look, the Heat are going to be better than the Magic if Jimmy Butler stays healthy, but Jimmy Butler doesn't stay healthy. So you got some upside there. And when you're in the 200-1 range, certainly you can ride those outcomes. So yeah, I'm a Magic man, I believe.
Is there any chance the Magic go out and get a veteran guard, like a Mike Conley type of guy? Like, let's say the Jazz slide. I know they played really well last night. I bet against them and lost. But let's say the Jazz, go on a little bit of a losing tear, and they really do kind of continue to try to sell those pieces. Do they move a Conley, or does Conley go to a contender and not like the Magic?
I don't think Conley goes to the Magic. I think, and look, the Magic, worryingly, is that they've got the 3rd worst record in the league right now. So they're right in Wembanyama zone. So that would be the concern. But the hope would be is that, one, the competition is so bleak that they could accidentally get to 37 wins, and you just need 37 wins to be enough, which it probably won't be. But I mean, 200 to 1, yeah, I don't mind it. Like, I think with the Magic, you're not betting on so much a trade as you're betting on like Jalen Suggs getting good, and Cole Anthony getting good, and Franz Wagner and Paolo going to another level. So yeah, I think there's upside. I love the Magic. Big Magic.
Gary Harris getting healthy would be nice too. I don't know if that's possible.
I forgot. Yeah. He needs to get back and get right, and Fultz needs to stay healthy. But yeah, one to track. Magic podcast. All right. Looks like we have a question from a viewer on Knicks Bulls.
Ooh.
Little DeMar DeRozan question. Hey guys, do you have an opinion on DeMar's PRA line? New York have tightened up defensively, but he has a great history against them, and they've given up a ton of points to volume scorers this year. They doubled Trey out of the game last week, but he had 20 potential assists. The Knicks allow the most three-point attempts in the league, while the Bulls are hitting their threes more consistently lately. As I go see on PointsBet right now, DeMar DeRozan, his points scored, rebounds, and assists are at 36.5. Yeah, I mean, his assist number is 4.5, which to me seems a little bit low. He's been going over that number. The Knicks, they sell out. I think the Knicks, they give up the 13th fewest looks at the rim, and they allow, the most threes. So, yeah, and that generally bodes fairly well for assists because threes are not self-created nearly as much. So, yeah, I like that look. I mean, we'll see what the Knicks player availability is too, with Jalen Brunson questionable at the moment. Look, the market thinks that he's going to play. Well, maybe the market doesn't think he's going to play. The line right now is Bulls -4, and the total is at 225.5. Any lean on DeRozan, Drew, and on this game in general?
Well, I think Aaron Campbell made the case himself very well. Yeah, I would say all of those same things. I think the Knicks aren't good. The Bulls, yes, they have been in free fall. People have kind of, they assume that they're going to tear this thing down and tank, but you don't have a lot of other guys that can really create just for themselves, create for teammates that are going to be available in this contest for the Bulls. So the fact that their entire offense runs through DeRozan here sounds right to me. Knicks, and Jalen Brunson is questionable, but I have not heard anything positive about his return for this particular contest. So I think realistically, Bulls rightful favorites, 4.5, a little too high for me. I would have made this game 3.5, but again, considering what the Knicks are trotting out and sort of just the limitations of that roster generally, I'm not running to back them in this game.
Yes, two strange teams in different types of flux and limbo. I would be, if Jalen Brunson is ruled in, then obviously that changes the complexion of the game. He's New York's best player. But yeah, I mean, I might skew under 225.5. Like the Knicks defense has been sneakily competent-ish. They're 15th in defensive rating by cleaning the glass at the moment. The Chicago defense has not been particularly well. I mean, they're defensively, they've gotten better as well. Right now, they're 9th in cleaning the glass rating. I don't think that is going to sustain necessarily, but particularly if Brunson is out, then I would start to look at the under. My favorite bet in this game is Nikola Vucevic over 15.5 points. He's gone over in 5 of 7. The Knicks are a bottom 5 defensive rebounding team, and even though Nikola Vucevic isn't like Pete Kenneth Fareed or anything on the offensive glass, do think that his size will matter in this game. So I like Vucevic over 15.5. Like, what do you make of the Bulls at the moment, Drew?
I don't think they're done. I also don't know what they do about this roster to make themselves better. It's 11-15 is obviously not the start they envisioned. Zach LaVine is obviously, has a little bit of is butting heads to a degree with Donovan this season. They are certainly not seeing eye to eye on how his role plays with the rest of this team. And I think you point out correctly that the only bright spot outside of DeRozan is Vucevic. He's been pretty solid this season. He's stepped up his particularly on the defensive side of the ball. He was a liability last year. He has improved there from what I can tell. And I think, they lack depth. They've made some poor draft choices over the last handful of years that just aren't living up to their, where they were drafted. And I think, people are circling this team like if they lose a couple more, we can try to start pulling away some of the key pieces in trades and hope that they go into tank mode. But I don't really get the feeling that the organization feels like that they're ready to tank at this point. So they can claw their way back into third in the Central. I mean, the Pacers are clearly on the wane right now. Pacers also maybe in the mix to send some players to to other teams. And the Bulls' schedule looks like it's about to get it's about to get pretty tough. So it's going to be a team that you're trying to take the points with, but I'm not laying points even against a team like the Knicks in a game like tonight.
Yep, we are aligned. The New York Knickerbockers +4. I think with the Bulls, like they should just be making these trades, like trade Caruso for James Wiseman. Like at that point, like at least get some upside. That would make it makes sense for both teams. For me, I think they'll probably make those kind of trades around the edges. I will be on the Betcast tonight for this game, Bulls-Knicks. I'm in Chicago. They'll be on NBC Sports Chicago. We've given a lot of thoughts with my man Will Perdue, David Kaplan, chopping it up. I'm sure there'll be some old Bulls war stories, which would be fun to tune in as Will waxes lyrical about Michael Jordan and co. And we'll talk a lot about the game, obviously, as well, and give out a lot of bets and as much insight as we can on that one, Bulls-Knicks tonight on NBC Sports Chicago. All right, we are done here for now. Don't forget to check out NBCSportsEdge.com for more information to help you with your wagers. Thanks everyone watching on the NBC Sports YouTube channel. And if you're listening to us in podcast form, don't forget to rate and subscribe us. From Jay Croucher and Drew Dinsick, go Morocco, and we'll see you soon.